Okay.
get on.
All right. Well, this is. Are you telling me to move in? This is week 9 for us. This week's feature of our live feed at the Gem Shop is on Coyamito agates. And we've done it again. We've cut almost over 100 pieces, I think, for this feed that are 100% new to the Gem Shop stock, have never been seen before at any shows or in our store. And we've saved it for you to watch and learn about Coyamito agate, its history, little few mining stories that we're going to share, along with some fantastic pieces that have been cut this week at the shop. Did you pull out any new stuff out of the vault for this week? I know people really are interested in that vault of yours, Gene.
Well, when we first mined the Coyamito agate in 2003, our share of that, I had it in a barrel back here, and we sold it over time until it got pretty far down to the bottom, and then we quit. We kept that barrel, and unfortunately we used that barrel as our space for our where we put all our packages that we ship, so nobody could get into the barrel for a few years. But we had to open it up to do this feed.
And we did. And then we closed it again.
Yes. There's not a whole lot left.
But enough to make this live feed very interesting. We cut from the Los Alamos claim that you mined in 2003, as well as some off of Area 6, which was in your third operation at Coyamito.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was truly beautiful to rediscover this rock this week, and I just want to share with you that I just feel so blessed to be able to cut and polish all of these agates and show them, because it's the past 2 weeks have been amazing rediscovering these materials in such quantity. So with that said, should we get to the boxes, Gene?
Boxes.
Okay, so this first box has the names of every single person that commented on our feed last week. Your name is in this box, and we want to encourage you to comment throughout the feed. Say hello. Say hi to Indiana Jean here. Tell us your favorite rock. It doesn't matter what the comment is. Your name will end up in this box for next week, which is going to be our last live feed for this season. And we're going to be bringing it back in the fall. Very, very exciting news for the Gem Shop. But let's get to this. The person whose name is picked out of this box this week gets 20% off their purchase this week.
Whatever they want.
Whatever
if
they want. If they want. Anything they purchase today, 20%
They
off.
get 20% off.
Who is it going to be? Jeremy. Can you show him, please? Thank you, Evan. All right, Jeremy, congratulations. Thank you for being our customer. You have 20% off anything you want today. And because we like surprises and we want to have some fun during this time, we have 140 items tonight for sale, and a number for each one is put into this box. Jean's going to pick a number out of this box, and that item is going to be half off to the first person who comments that number in the feed.
And what range of prices are there today?
Price range is $15 to $2,500. So consider that before you type this number in, if you're doing it before you see the item. But you can do it now. You can do it when you see the item. You could do it tomorrow at noon. As long as that item is not sold, it would be yours half off.
There it is.
Number 22. So those of you just joining us, I want to briefly explain how this works. We're going to start an interview with Gene about the Coyamito Ranch and his time there. And we'll move into our live feed portion for tonight. Evan and I will be showing you the pieces in the camera that we have for sale. If you see something that you like, simply text or comment that number in the feed. We will be reviewing all of the comments after the feed, and we will be contacting you with those item numbers if you are the winner. or the first one to comment that number. If you are a new customer of ours, please, it's so helpful if you could just send us a message and start that line of communication. Since this is all a kind of a new business thing for us, we're learning little tweaks and things to make it easier for us connecting with you. So, should we start your lecture on Coyamito egg, or do you want to talk about this first? Okay, Evan, pedestal rock. So we have a pedestal rock for this week. This is a superb Coyamito pseudomorph in the rough.
Pseudomorphic Coyamito agate from Los Alamos area, mined in 2003.
Look at all those.
Very, very good color showing there, and you can see how the crystals grew up out of the bottom of the cavity. This is, and you can kind of see an indication on the back where the crystals were, and this was the cavity.
Let me just spray this. You can see some of the color in there. I think it goes from white to yellow to red to blue. It's just a beautiful ring of color in those tubes. This is the pedestal rock. It's selling for $2,500. If you are interested, simply comment pedestal rock. And we are going to move into your discussion on Coyamito agate. Let me back up, sweetie. Thank you. On to June. Where does Coyamito agate come from?
Yeah, last week we were in Oregon, so now we're going to move back to Mexico. So I want to show this map again. If you have seen our previous feeds, we have shown this map before. So here's Chihuahua City, and then to the north here is El Paso and Juarez, and here's the highway that runs from El Paso down to Chihuahua City. As when we talked about Laguna agate, here is Ojo Laguna, or I Lake, and the little town of Laguna is over here, and Estacion Ojo Laguna is on the other side of the lake. And this mountain range right here is where all the Laguna agate deposits are. There's many of them, and it extends for 2-3 miles. A little further to the north, there's a little road that goes to Esperanza. And the road goes right through the Agua Nueva Ranch, which we talked about earlier. And then if you go a little east of the Agua Nueva Ranch, then the road goes north along the east side of these mountains, and the Coyamito Ranch is just to the north of the Agua Nueva Ranch, right in this area here. So that's the area that we're going to talk about. I have to discuss a little bit what is a Coyamito agate, because the agate from this area has a long history. It's been in the market since the 50s, but in the 50s, not all the agate that was in the market as Coyamito agate came from the Coyamito Ranch. Most of this agate was surface collected, gathered together from various locations, and brought to El Paso for the dealers there to sell. A dealer in El Paso would simply have a cowboy come to him with a sack of rocks, and they would buy it, and then they would sell it as Coyamito agate because that was the place that it was well known from. But those agates sometimes contain El Sueco agates or Gregorio agates, and they were all sold as Coyamito agates. Anyway, the reputation for what is a Coyamito agate became described in the market as a small nodular agate, usually red in color or having red banding in it. Excuse me. That is what people knew Coyamito agate as.
Should we go look at some of these agates? I mean, not every one that we have is small.
No.
So, Evan, why don't you follow me, please? So we're gonna start by showing these two rocks here. And these rocks show how the agates form in the andesite flow. Do you want to talk about what you see here, Gene?
Yeah, the deposits are the andesite rocks, well known. They're only in there. I believe there's 13 different andesite flows, and all the agates are in one particular flow. And you can see on this rock how dense they are. I mean, this is an agate here, and here's an agate here. It's all quartz. You can see a cavity here. You can see another one here. These layers where the agates are generally like 3 to 6 feet thick or so, and usually run horizontally, but not always. It's much different than, say, the Laguna deposits, where the agates are very, very difficult to follow.
So we're going to start by showing some of these less expensive agates here. Numbers 1 through 21 are $15 each. And these are a mixture of different deposits, but mostly from the Los Alamos deposit. Can you talk to us about the different deposits on the Coyamito Ranch?
There are many agate deposits on the Coyamito Ranch, but they're kind of grouped into two areas. And these areas have names. The first one, just west of the hacienda, is called Los Alamos. And the second area, which is north, about 3 miles north of the hacienda, is called Soñareña. And there's multiple deposits in each of those areas. The very original deposit dug in the 1950s was in the Los Alamos area, and I actually have a picture.
What if we left this up? What number are we on?
I'll show you a picture in a minute of the original trench, dug in the 1950s, of the Los Alamos area.
So tell me about your first mining operation at the Coyamito Ranch. Can you tell me about how you met Marin? How did you start that? I mean, at this point in time in the gem shop history, you had already been mining morrisonite, and that was pretty much done. And you were mining Laguna agates. And then all of a sudden you got this opportunity in 2003 to mine at Coyamito Ranch.
I was already mining on the Agua de Hueva Ranch. And the Coyamito Ranch is just to the north. There had been no Coyamito agate in the market for 30 years. And so I thought, well, I should go maybe talk to them and see if it'd be possible to if there were any agate left, or if it'd be possible to mine anything. The owner of the Coyamito Ranch is Marin Carrillo. And surprisingly, can you hear me okay?
You should come closer.
Surprisingly, I had a great deal of difficulty arranging a meeting with him. Like I said, there had been no Coyamito agate produced, and no one was allowed on the ranch. No one could go there. It was closed. Eventually, I arranged a meeting, and this meeting took place just shortly after I had completed another mining operation, and we went there. I went there with Pat McMahon. Pat McMahon was with me, and we were directed to go to a ranch just south of Esperanza. We weren't even going to the Coyamito Ranch. And we were directed to this ranch to meet Marin Carrillo and talk about the possibility of mining Coyamito agate. Pat and I drove in, found the ranch, drove in, and we were immediately met by a guard dog. This was a very fierce-looking dog, and it found out later that it was a trained to kill dog. This is Marine Senior. He had this dog for his own protection, and it went with him wherever he went. So we arrived at the ranch. Marine put the dog in his cage, and we went inside to discuss the mining operation. So we went inside, and there was like a little kitchen table there. So Marine sat down on the other side of the table, and Pat and I started discussing, what if there was still agate at the ranch or not. Marine sat on the other side of the table and slowly put a loaded gun on the table. So Pat and I are standing there, kind of speechless, and he's sitting at on the table with a loaded gun right by his right hand. So that's where the discussion went. We kept on talking about things. We spent about 3 hours. The gun never left the table. Even during that time, I had to eat something since I'm a diabetic, and we let Marie know that. He said the kitchen is right over there. Fix what you want. And so Pat, who is a very good cook, by the way, we made a little breakfast, and all three of us ate breakfast on that table with the gun right there, and went on and continued discussing the possibility of mining on the Coyamito Ranch. Eventually, we came to an agreement with some conditions, and these were the conditions. The mining operation would be for 15 days. Marine would receive 25% of the rock. Marine had to have the ability to watch the whole operation. He wanted to understand what was involved in the production of the rock and how it was produced, because he wanted to do it himself. And the fourth condition was that I had to choose the location. It'd be one location, and we eventually, I think I discussed this with Brad Cross, and eventually decided on a low sloping hill, not too far from where the original trench was dug. So that's how we got started. And the next year we actually did the mining.
So this next section that I've started here are from one area, and these are all from the Los Alamos area of your 2003 mining operation, correct? Okay. Yes. So do you want to tell us about how these things were mined? What was your mining operation like that first year?
The mining operation was for 15 days. We did it with an excavator. I'm going to get a picture. And the process was to first of all find the layer, the andesite layer where the agates are. And this can be, anywhere from like 3 to 6 feet thick or so. And then you use the excavator to loosen the rock along that layer and try to spot the agates. So these two pictures, which I'll show you in a minute, show that kind of operation. Surprisingly, we see these agates out of the ground and they're easy. You'd think they'd be very easy to identify, but when they're coming out of the rock, that's not the case. Quite often the agate will rock and get hidden under the dirt, and you don't see it. So as the excavator is working, you observe the rock and try to see where the agates go, and then once the excavator has passed, you go through the rock and pick out the agates. Now, since there had been no Coyamito agate produced for 30 years, when some people found out that I was actually going to be there, it created quite a bit of interest. So I have a little picture here of Brad Cross was there, and Steve Wheeler was there even. So here's a...
Here's another picture.
So here's
Some visitors at the Coyamito mining operation.
Brad was there for quite a while.
Look how young you are.
And that's Maureen's son. It's also named Maureen.
And this one here?
And this is Maureen Sr.
Surprise Steve Wheeler, if you're listening.
Talking with Steve Wheeler.
All right, where are we at, Evan? 47? All right, number 47 is $195 for the pair. This is just a beautiful full nodule. It's very striking. Thank you, Evan. Number 48 is $65, again, for the pair. Beautiful purple and yellow. There we go. Where are you at, Jean?
Two things.
You have more pictures to show us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Beautiful red tubes in this one. The purple center. What do you got?
This is a picture during the operation, and because the rock had to be split, you can see they were working on making 4 piles. So after every day, the agate would be graded and put into the 4 piles to make them as even as possible.
And what do you have here? The Los
A couple more
Alamos
pictures.
claim post?
Here's the claim marker for the Los Alamos claim. And that's a picture of Maureen Sr. Observing the operation, seeing seeing how it's done, and how the work is accomplished.
And this one down here?
During the end.
Oh, this is a big story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, I'm going to go back to showing agates, but this is
Okay.
a picture of what Jean's going to talk about here. Thank you. Tell us about that picture.
Near the end of the operation, Maureen came to me and said, "Gene, there's a little water seepage out of a little arroyo up here, and I was wondering if you could take the machine over there and see if you could open up that water source." So we walked the machine over there. It was about 1.5 miles away, and there was a narrow little arroyo that went up the side of the mountain. I worked the excavator up there. I had to take out a lot of trees. It was very difficult to get the machine in there, but I got it up on the bank and started digging where he said, and didn't find anything. It was digging and digging, and we were about ready to give up. And then I got down there with the bucket and pulled up this big flat rock, and then all of a sudden water started to run out of the mountain. Just it had opened up the spring, and the water was running. Maureen was so happy. He was so happy. The next day, he ran to the store and got a bunch of pipes, and he had me dig a trench down so that he could build a water source for his cattle in the area.
So moving on down the table here, we're going to hit 2 trays here of agates that I got to cut this week. Very exciting. Evan, you want to go close on those actually? These are from an area called Area 6. Can you talk about the different areas and Area 6 specifically and why it's special?
The gem shop mined Coyamito agate 3 different years. The first time at Los Alamos and the second 2 times at Sonoreña. And part of the agreement for mining at Sonoreña was that I had to work 5 different areas. If you can go up here to those pictures, this is the Sonoreña area. And of course there were no roads in there. I had to build roads to all of them. Maureen wanted to know the deposits, whether they'd be productive, whether they would be worth mining himself. So that was part of the, this operation was for 30 days, but that was part of my requirements for working there, was to work at least 5 different areas. So that year, I did open up and work 5 different areas. Some were successful, others were not. And I was invited back to work again the next year. The next year we advanced that study of those areas. But during the end of the operation, there was a little time left. And so I was looking around for another deposit, and we found this area, which we call Area 6. And it was on the north side of a ridge very close to the border, the north border of the Coyamito Ranch, and worked that area for a couple of days. These areas are outlined on our website, and you can see a report there that shows where they were. I was impressed on Area 6 that I thought they seemed when I was mining them that they had a lot of purple color. But when we actually went to cut a bunch this past week, we find that there's quite a variety of colors.
There's lots of purple and red and striking like bright yellow in some of them, but they've varied just as much as the other deposits, really. So number 71 there has that beautiful red band with some purple center agate. 72 is banded to the center. Tiny little crystal pocket, I guess. $40 on 72. This one is one of my favorites that I got to cut. The beautiful lavender colors. Banding is so tight in this one. Beautiful Coyamito agate. This one has really subtle purple color with a pink band on the outside. Here's that contrast that we'll always love as agate collectors. That red and purple. So typical of Coyamito. Blue and red on this one. Number 76 is 40. Number 77 has some nice little tube formations in the bottom of that open nodule. Beautiful purple, rich purple color. Number 78 has pink and white banding to the center. Not as typical for Coyamito, but very pretty. Have we turned that off, Jean? No. Here, we're going to show this one again. We had a request to see number 43 again. Once you get set up there. Number 43 is 85 for the pair. Really has some dramatic things going on. All right. Number 79 is this this is another section of agates that were taken out of that barrel in the back, wasn't it, Jean? Is up, and this next one is a 9.95 pound Coyamito agate. How rare is it to have a Coyamito agate this large, Jean?
I wanted to say something about that because during the 1950s and 60s, when Coyamito agate received a kind of a reputation for what it was for small nodules. And when I went there to mine, I was expecting all small nodules, and we were finding these large nodules. If you saw the picture before, those average size was a half pound to a pound or a pound and a half, and large nodules of Coyamito agate are possible. And it was just not known, or in the market, the large size was just not known.
So here's another one from that Los Alamos claim. Number 80 is $70 for the pair. Red and blue. 81 is $70, full back. Coyamito has so much of that beautiful bright red against the blue band. It's very typical. Go ahead.
It's like Agua Nueva, which is only 7 miles to the south. That pair of contrasting bands. In Agua Nueva agate, it's usually a little further into the nodule than it is with Coyamito. Coyamito, it tends to be towards the outside, very close to the surface. But it's very common and a fairly good indicator that an agate is a Coyamito agate if you see that really contrasting band very close to the outside edge.
This is Coyamito perfection. I think I labeled it that on Facebook today. I am in love with this rock. Such a beautiful, beautiful piece. The tube formations, the banding, there's shadow and parallax in the tube, sliced there, not a fracture in sight. Just gorgeous. Where am I? 84. This is not a typical Coyamito, but you do find some that have this purple and yellow together.
Yes.
Instead of the blue and red. So Coyamito agate can be just as colorful as the other northern Mexican agates. Number 85. Ooh, we lost our price tag. Is 70. Tell us a story about your Los Alamos mining days, Jean. We have a question. What is that? Oh, numbers to see again. We're coming right up. Evan's going to pick them for you. Here's number 87. 60 for the pair. Number 88. A beautiful single with an inflow-outflow chamber. Number 51. Where'd I go? $45. Beautiful purple and mauve colors in this one. Number 37. This is $175 for the pair. Stunning. Yes. Do we have questions? This is a live feed, so if you have questions for Jean, feel free to ask them at any time. Isaac will take their questions down and hand us a note up here so we can answer your inquiries if you have questions from the mining operations that the gem shop has done there, or how we go about cutting Coyamito agate, you could talk about that.
Yes, a little bit. Coyamito agates are usually hollow. They're not. It's not common for them to be completely filled in, although that happens too. And the people who cut them years and years ago would often skin cut, what they called skin cut them close to the outside, even making specimens that way. I don't have any really good examples of skin cut ones.
Well, some of these
here,
cabs are.
but some of the cabs
Yeah.
are, yeah.
This one.
Because that real contrasting band is near the outside, and because they're quite often hollow, that's if you have a rough Coyamito agates, that's one way to consider cutting it. Don't cut it right in half, but if you have any indication that it is really good banding, you can stay close to one side, and usually you get a spectacular agate that way.
So yeah, Coyamito agates are commonly hollow in the center.
Yes.
Are they not? I mean, what percentage do you think are hollow versus ones that are solid to the center with agate banding?
I'd say maybe 90%.
90% hollow?
95%. And unfortunately...
That's a good question. Evan had a question.
Yes.
He said if the Coyamito agates are hollow, wouldn't they be geodes?
Well, the difference between what's called an agate and a geode is the characteristic of the hollow. If the striking part of the piece is the hollow cavity, then the term geode can apply and is usually used. If the striking part of the agate is banding in the color, or the striking part of the piece is in the banding, then it's usually referred to as an agate.
So we talked about skin cutting, and I have a few more skin cut cabs coming up here, but these that I've been showing are actually pseudomorphs. And the next thing that we wanted to talk about, and I'm getting tapped on shoulders, no? Are pseudomorphs. Do we have a number? Okay. Number 63 for 35. We're showing this again. Feel free to comment if you want to see something again. I'd be happy to pull it for you. Let's talk about pseudomorphs. What is a pseudomorph?
Okay.
False shape. My son said it's a false shape.
That's the technical, yes. What happens with the Coyamito agate is that the cavity in the andesite has crystal growth, or grows crystals in it first, and then the agate comes in later. And there are kind of like three scenarios. Sometimes the crystals, you fill up part of the cavity and the agate forms around the crystals. And so then the agate nodule has a very unusual shape. It's like you can see the crystal impression in the outside of the nodule. In other cases, the agate forms around the crystals and actually coats the crystals. And then you can, we have a spectacular piece I'm going to show a little bit later. So you can see the crystal where the crystals were, but kind of in a rounded fashion, or like the pedestal rock, where the crystals were growing up out of the nodule. And in a third case, which is the most spectacular, sometimes the crystals themselves get replaced as well. So not only do you have the crystals coated, but you have the crystals replaced. And we have some exceptional examples.
And we're going into that section right now. So here we have some beautiful examples of pseudomorphs in Coyamito agate.
Can I show this one?
You may, yeah.
So here's a piece from it. This is the outside of the agate cavity, and you can see the inside here where the crystal was. So you can see the kind of the crystal shape, and then the agate coated it,
And then the
you know,
barite or aragonite crystal was eaten away and gone.
Yeah.
So here's our first piece of the Pseudomorph section. Number 90 is 150. This one shows a beautiful hexagonal crystal on the top here. It's in the raw. It's not been cut. It's just been unearthed. Did you want to read that one out loud? No? Okay. Jean, you can have that. It says, Jean, ¿hablas español? I don't speak Spanish. I only know a little bit. Number 111, 750. This one shows a whole bunch of those aragonite crystals coming up into the cavity and being coated around. Beautiful.
Can I show the pedestal rock again?
You can show whatever you like. Do you have pictures over there still?
Yeah.
Number 112 is 175. This one has just this gorgeous, you can see the coating of the crystal and the fill-in of the crystal. Very, very gorgeous.
That's an end cut off of a larger piece, but it shows, I mean, an incredible sized crystal that was in the cavity.
Number 113 is 125. You can see this pseudomorph spray of crystals that occurred there. It's polished on the bottom. What do you have there? You want to show that?
This is the pedestal rock again.
Oh, the pedestal rock.
So you can see this is the agate nodule, a quite large nodule. It probably weighed 6-7 pounds, and the crystal growth started in the bottom part of this cavity and grew up. These are the ends of and you can see how the agate coated them. The crystal itself is only about that wide. You can see the hexagonal shape.
Yeah, a lot of those coatings will have a little hollow center, and you saw a lot of those holes kind of in the cabs that we showed earlier. That's the hollow center of the pseudomorph crystal. This is the one that Jean showed earlier. Number 121 is $60. Beautiful example. Hey, Evan, could you help me? Can you help me can me stuff? Where did I go? Oh, wait. Sorry. I skipped a row. Number 115 is 500. You can see those tubes here. A pseudomorph growths coming out there. A lot going on in that agate. 115, 500. Here's one of the better pseudomorph agates we have today. This is 116. It's 2,000. How much does this one weigh, Evan? £2.4 pounds on this nodule. Yeah? 2.55. Beautiful coating and then a replacement of that crystal.
You can see the crystals grew all the way to the top edge.
Oh. Number 117 is 240. What's next?
118.
118. A large one. 300 on this one. Not as much color, but still has some of those fantastic pseudomorph patterns. Here we go. Poor Isaac is answering that phone like crazy. Thank you, Isaac. 119 is 1800. It's the other half of this beautiful Coyamito pseudomorph. This one is flawless of the two. It has a tiny little fracture up here. Guess it's not completely perfect. Very close. $120 is 150. This, you can see all of the quartz crystals that formed around the tubes. The the agate coating occurred, and then the quartz coating on top of that. I did that one. I don't know why. 122 is 40. And 123, a pair for 75. Okay, well, talking about pseudomorphs made me think of one of my favorite rocks, the polyhedroid, because we wanted to discuss what a polyhedroid was in one of our feeds, but we would have never had a full show for one. So we kind of grouped it together here with the pseudomorphs. Would you like to talk to us about polyhedroids?
Polyhedroids were discovered in Bahia, Brazil. I think about 1974. And it turns out that a man named Martin Soklich from Australia was in Brazil looking for other things. And the story that I was told, he was in a bar, and the people there knew that he was looking for rocks. So this guy brought in these rocks and showed them to him, and they were these crazy shaped agates that eventually became called polyhedroids. He arranged to have them mined and had them exported to Australia. So for the first year or so that polyhedroids existed, they all went to Australia. When we found out about them, we contacted our contacts in Brazil, and they said, well, you'll have to contact people in Australia. And then we imported the first polyhedroids ever to come into this country from Australia. So here we have a Brazilian product. It went to Australia and then to the United States, all the way around the world. There was quite a bit of interest and speculation when they first came out, and I think it was December. I might be wrong about this. December of 1974, where there was an article in the Lapidary Journal describing them and naming them as polyhedroids. They are not a true pseudomorph like other things are, and if I can show you a couple of rough ones here.
Go. You want to hold them? You got it?
Just hold.
Okay.
These are two that are almost complete. And an unfortunate thing is that when these were mined out of the ground, it was like jungle. They had to remove about 6 feet of jungle before they had found the deposit, and they were loose in the soil. But they weren't treated like crystals at all. So they were just treated like rocks and thrown in a pile. So it's very unusual to find a complete one. They just got chipped and so on and so forth over by being moved.
So here's one more of this, but right after this one, number 132 here, we're going to show some of these full crystals. So 132 is 65 for this slice. It is cut on both sides. Nice blue band around the center and black in the center. Okay, these are pretty special, and not only did Gene have to find a crystal that was full enough, and he just said how they were treated there, basically, but then he's lapped and polished every single edge of this crystal, and it's what it represents, the negative space in between the calcite crystals.
Yeah, we call these crystallized negative space. And the way they think that the polyhedroids were formed is that there was a lattice work of calcite plates that formed, and that the agate then filled in the spaces between these plates. You can see something like this in some of the Mexican coconut geodes that have calcite plates and these same kind of shapes that the polyhedroids have. So in effect, what you have is an agate in the shape of a negative space. It is a space between something else that existed. This makes them extremely unusual and kind of unique, and somehow, I don't know what to say, they're interesting, but like foreign. A person looking at this crystal shape would immediately want to know, well, what rules forms this shape? And there are none, because it doesn't match anything else.
So it's not a cubical shape. It's not
Yeah,
a
it's not.
hexagonal shape, crystal shape. It's not a true crystal shape. So a few more of these here. This is number 135 for 80. And then, Evan, what number are you holding there? 79. You're coming up for another look. 136 is 90. Okay. A thin one. Number 137 is also 90, the matching pair. Okay. Number 79. Oh, I forgot you were 10 pounds. Okay. Beautiful.
Did you do that? No, we started back here. I know.
Such a wonderful tour around that banding. Here you go. And it's cap. Number 83. 2,500. We'll take a tour around this one too. Okay, what else do you have there, Evan? A polyhedroid, number 127. And then we're moving on to Evan's pick of the week. No? Oh, you got me all excited. Here we go. What's next? What is it? Number 117 for 240. 117, 240. Full back. Okay, can we go to Evan's pick of the week now? Okay. So happy Evan picked this one. Just kind of goes with the week. This is an Agua Nueva, piece of Agua Nueva agate from the Agua Nueva Ranch. It has some beautiful tube formations growing up through here, which are all quartz covered, just like those Pseudomorphs. And Jean's just lightly polished the tops of those tubes there so you can see their inside beauty as well. A little vein. This piece is number 138. It's for 65. Evan gets commission from his pick of the week for helping out with filming for us. So consider his education. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so what do you have here? Pictures?
Okay, I posted a picture of this rock, and while I was looking through my photographs to try to find photos for this feed, I actually found a picture when just after it came out of the ground. So that's the way it looked like when it
He's
came
talking
out of
about
the
this
ground.
rock
So that's that rock.
in the ground, or just out of the ground, is right there, with before it was all cleaned up.
Yeah. These are not for sale, but just wanted to show
Really cool.
Yeah. And the second picture shows some pseudomorphs in place in the ground before they were taken out of the rock. You can see those crystal shapes sticking up there. In my share of the rock, I got the one on the left. That's this one right here. So in this case, if you look at the bottom, you can see the hollow place where the crystal was. It got coated with agate and then with quartz crystals on top of that.
There we go.
I also wanted to make the point that the pseudomorphs can occur in any agates. So here is a typical small Coyamito agate. It's a little over an inch long, 3/4 of an inch wide, and cut open it's all red, and there's a pseudomorph inside. So any whole Coyamito agate can have pseudomorphs.
Number one. Number one was $15. It's a little bit of a lip there. Beautiful purple and red. There you go. We have a few pieces of rough to look at. So as we take a walk over here, come on, Evan. So we don't have very much Coyamito agate rough available anymore, but we do have some. We have the number 2 material from the Los Alamos claim from your first 2 years of mining, mostly.
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
This material, you can grab the water bottle. This is number 139. It sells for $12 a pound. And it's mostly small. So if you order this, this is kind of what you can expect. It has some nice colored banding, thinner, like 1/2 inch skins. There are some nodules in here that will show some pseudomorphic formations that could be cabbed, but you're not going to find a whole lot of specimen material in here. So it's mostly material that I would recommend for more of a cabber or a hobbyist than a collector. And I have special vault rough available here. This is 2-pound bags of Coyamito agate. Tell us about this rock, how it was graded, because this was a separate thing that you had just stashed away from 2003 and found.
Yeah, when we're dividing the agate
91.
into number 1 and number 2, sometimes you find a skin agate or something with really great banding, and but could not cut a whole nodule or a specimen at all. So that was put in what we called a cabbing grade. It's great for cabs, not large cabs, but great for cutting cabs. So it was called our cabbing grade.
So these are 2-pound lots that are selling for $50. So if you would like one of those, there are 11 available. This is number 140, a 2-pound lot for $50. Or we have the number 2 material, number 139, for $12 a pound. Here we're showing a cab again for number 91, which is $46. There we go. And we are on to a wonderful story, a mining story by Indiana Jean.
This is
It has something to do with peanut butter, I heard.
another story from Mining Morrisonite. And my friend Jake, he spent several winters out there. So he spent the entire year, which is not an easy thing to do. At the time we were mining out there, if you were out there in November, the weather changed, and if it did, you weren't leaving for 3 or 4 months. There's just no way of getting out of there unless you had to walk the 27 miles or so back to the dirt road. If you're going to live in that area, you have to be, under those conditions, you have to be concerned about your food for that length of time. And Jake, in his cabin, had placed this 55-gallon drum up in the rafters of the cabin so that the edge of the drum kind of set out in the air. And he stored his food in there. Well, we were both out there mining, and he had been there most of the winter, and he said, Gene, I gotta go to town and get supplies. I'm gonna be gone about a week or maybe 10 days. And so he's just letting me know that he was gonna go. And he had a jar of peanut butter, a new jar of peanut butter, and he, just a few days before he left, he had opened it up, used a little, put the cover on the edge of the barrel in the ceiling. Okay, so he left and came back 10 days later, and a few days later, he said, "Gee, come and look at this." So I go up in the cabin, and there's the 55-gallon drum up in the ceiling, and there on the edge is an empty glass jar. It's completely empty. The cover is laying on the right beside it, and there's nothing in it. And Jake says, "I left this jar here full, I thought." So we're sitting there looking at each other and trying to contemplate, well, what happened here? And the first scenario was, well, Jake, you didn't forget that you used everything, did you? No. Look, the jar was completely cleaned out. There was no peanut butter in it. There were no smudges of peanut butter in it. There were no smudges of peanut butter on the cover laying beside it. The little grooves that where it screws on, there was no peanut butter in that. It was pristine. It was like it was a brand new glass jar. So Jake said, number one, if I'd have eaten a lot of it, I would have never left it that clean. Okay, what else could have happened? Well, someone could have come to the camp and used all the peanut butter, and that certainly was possible. I mean, he was gone for like 10 days. I was working down below. Somebody could have come in, eaten all the peanut butter, and left, and I never saw him. I never saw anybody. But we kind of discarded that. Morrisonite is not a place that you drive 27 miles on a dirt road to eat a jar of peanut butter. So we concluded that the rat living in Jake's cabin must have gotten himself up on the rafters, made the jump from one rafter to the barrel, crawled in the barrel, got the cover off the peanut butter jar, and ate all the peanut butter.
Are you done?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
I'm going to collect some requests while you're finishing up.
Oh, okay. So those were the possible scenarios, and I must repeat that it is how clean the jar was. It was absolutely pristine, no peanut butter at all in the jar. So the rat had a good time for 6 or 7 days eating the peanut butter, and then disappeared when Jake got back, of course. So from the rat's point of view, maybe if you really work hard at something, you know, sometimes it can be really rewarding. That's it.
That's it. So
Got
you
a
have
few
some
more to look at?
requests.
We have a few requests here. I'm going to try to get as many as possible. We can always send us a message, and we can send you photographs through Messenger as well. And that might work a little bit better for some of these. I was able to just pull a few here for you guys. So send us that message, if you will, and we'll sure to get you some close-up pictures in the feed, in the Messenger comment. This was number 89 for 50. For the pair there, had a request for number 110, a cab. Beautiful pseudomorph. And here is a pseudomorph as well, number 112 for 175, that large crystal. And the last request here that I was able to pull, number 121 for 60. That pseudomorph
hollow crystal there. So that concludes our live feed for today. Number 9 is done. We have one week left. Right, Gene? What is it?
One more. All the feeds that we've had to date represent something that the gem shop has been involved in the production of that rock, bringing it to the market. And next week we're just going to have a sort of a grouping of samples of everything. We've been working tremendously hard producing things for each of the feeds, and of course we don't get them all done in time. So there is a little bit of everything left back there to finish, and we're going to show those next week.
Some of them I've pulled out. So like for Morrisonite, I saved some for the review show. So there are some very nice, spectacular pieces coming up next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's really awesome to be able to share this live feed with everyone since we can't be at the shows, but we are opening up our store come June 1st. So hope to see some of you there. Thanks, guys.